a podcast called Strangest Fruit.
Take 10.
All right, so we are back here at Pleasant Valley State Prison, CDCR, and we have AW.
Currently,
correct?
yeah.
Current AW?
Yeah. Acting.
Acting?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're acting.
Yeah.
That's a, what is that, overstatement, understatement, whichever one.
It is what it is.
This is a first for me. This is a first, well, being a CDCR for about 18 years, I've never seen a warden speak, carry themselves, approach the population in a way that you are and you have. What makes you so different, and why is the approach that you have so different?
Oh, that's a long story, but the short of it is I was lucky to have a lot of, just a wide array of really good mentors coming up in the department, starting with my father and all the way up into some of the guys that you met, like Tristan Lemon. And one that I'll name, and he's a really good friend of mine, but he's been there for me to give me a lot of advice. And we've been growing in the department together, Ed Borla. We all came from the same institution originally, and we all have the same outlook that people are people. And the way that you introduce yourself, the way that you act with them is going to have the most impact of how they're going to behave with you and interact with you. So it makes no sense to start off a dialogue. It makes no sense to start off a relationship with somebody under the pretense that I'm untouchable by you, you don't have the right to touch me, or you're not worth a handshake. To me, I observe the sanctity of human life. I've been taught that from as far back as I can remember. And if a human being is willing to engage with me in dialogue, and if I can believe for a second that that person really is out for the best, not only for themselves, but for the population in this case, then I owe them that. I owe them that. So ever since then, I've been shaking hands, and then a lot of staff honestly don't know how to take it initially. But I've had the majority of them come to me later and say, you know what, that's a game changer. And I don't know why I haven't done it before. So,
What is the definition of rehabilitation in its purest form, what you see it as?
to me, rehabilitation is helping somebody to develop to the point where they can make decisions that will benefit their future self 5, 10, 15 years down the road. To put away the immediacy of immediate graduation, or immediate gratification, sorry, not graduation, and really consider the impact, the ripple effect of their decisions, and putting that dopaminergic response that they're looking for where it belongs, not into a substance that they can put in themselves, or a decision they can make right now, or a craving that they can satisfy right now to give them that dopamine bump, but to build relationships, to build accomplishments that they can get fed over time, and they don't need that stuff no more. That they're happy, and to stop doing stuff that really negatively impacts themselves and those that depend on them.
With the current state of CDCR in its totality, I have to be devil's advocate in this manner by saying, if we let them go, that takes away our money. If there's a giant release of inmate population getting back out into society, doesn't that take away from the jobs, the funding that comes with it? People would say that, like, well, what are we, this is a well-oiled machine that's designed to be continuously going, and throwing a monkey wrench in the machine is not what we're about.
Okay.
How do you deal with that? Because I know it's there.
Wow. So the first time I've said this, I believe I was a sergeant at the men's colony in San Luis Obispo, and I told my clerk, Curtis Carroll, he was my rec clerk. He had some programs up in the Bay. He's since paroled. We used to call him Wall Street. But what I told him was, if we got to the point where we rehabilitated every single one of you, and we had to close prisons down and I didn't have a job anymore, I would be the happiest man. Because all those resources really should be directed at kids. We should have, it's sad that we have an entire department, billions and billions of dollars that are earmarked to correct an issue that starts in kindergarten, in preschool. You know, if we could direct 1/10 of that money to that population, to the inner city youth, to homes, just to fractured homes, or kids that weren't born with the gifts that were given to me that I didn't earn. You know, the place that I was born into that I did nothing to justify. I was lucky. I was lucky, and not everybody's that lucky. And if we could direct, again, 1/10 of our budget to those kids, to those households, to teach them the things that I was taught, to be an example for them, like the examples that I had, to have the networks, the community networks that I had, that I leaned on, that raised me, there would be no need for prisons, in my opinion. Sure, you're gonna have a small component of the population that just will never, because of whatever reason, fit in and follow penal code the way that we expect of our citizens, but it wouldn't be to the magnitude that we're seeing it. And that's even with the reduced population that we have now. I think there's a lot of potential out there. There's a lot of things that we could do if we just kind of got over ourselves a little bit and went after the right thing. I think there's a lot that we could do that would benefit where we are in California today as far as prison populations and crime. But I think the answer really is going after our youth.
What is your opinion of the youth now? We have probably one of the highest, they have a new form of STD going around, and HIV, that stuff is even stronger than it was, and it's between the ages 15 to 20 years old. You have 12-year-olds running around with Dracos with 100-round clips on it. You have I would say from my gang life experience, this gang life that's new is something that's completely different, and it's not what I believe in, and you have to fit this place for another wave that's coming in. How do you bring about a rehabilitation towards that particular group of people?
And if I had the answer to that, I'd be a really, really wealthy man. You know, I see the videos, they come across my feeds my threads every once in a while, and I honestly just shake my head, and I can't believe that this stuff is actually going on out there, in my country, in my state, in my area. And it's sad, and the first thing that comes to me is, honestly, where are their parents? You know, where are their mentors? Why is it all kids? Can we honestly say that no adult knows that that's going on, and nobody can go in there and intervene and do something about it? Like, can we actually be honest with ourselves and say that? I find that hard to believe. There is an aspect of the inability to see or to accept responsibility right now that I see in a lot of youth and in a lot of adults. We have a lot of rights. We talk about those, but we don't really talk about a lot of the responsibilities that come along with those rights.
Right.
And one of those responsibilities should be should be, then one of the highest order responsibilities should be to love thy neighbor as thyself. And if that was my neighbor, and if I'm loving that person as myself, I wouldn't be acting in that way. I wouldn't be stealing their Hellcat to go do burnouts in the middle of the street and do takeovers. I just wouldn't be doing that, you know.
He knows.
I know. I've been seeing those videos, and it's sad. It really is. It's sad. I think it is fixable. I think it is going to take just about every resource that we have. I don't think that there is, with the department that we have now and the leadership that's in place, I do not believe that there is a organizational target that we could not hit. I really don't. We have a lot of resources. Seems like we have endless resources, billions and billions of dollars. We have a lot of dedicated people, a lot of really good staff. Our leadership in Sacramento, I believe a lot of the people that I know personally, their heart's in the right place, and their mind is working around that. And I think that's the right way to deal with it instead of the other way around. I think they're leading with their heart and figuring it out logically behind, instead of removing emotion from it and just going at it from a logical standpoint without really realize what we're dealing with. And this is our future. It is the future of California. It is the future of one of the greatest states, if not the greatest state in the nation, which is the greatest nation, which is the greatest nation in the world, you know, which is the greatest nation of all time. You know, is this really where we're at? Is this really what we're willing to accept as our future? I don't. So that's what drives me. That's why I do what I do. And that's why I'm here.
I often state to people that if you want to lead the people, you have to free the people. And a lot of times that I've seen with, you know, guys out there in the streets, as I go around the community and, you know, pass out food, we advocate Competent Innocence Initiative. And one of the things that I've seen is that the pillars of the community are sitting in here. While you have guys that are out there who, I don't know if time's taking a toll, I don't know if they've given up, I don't know if they sold for a jelly roll, but I do know that they're not pushing the youth, the unity, the way that they do. But you have guys that are inside here who have a voice, who can say something, who are extremely resilient and won't even do it based on the fact that their influence alone, although it may be for the good, can cause them to be stuck in prison for the rest of their lives. For those reasons, they have to step away. Do you feel that that's something that should still go on? If a man fears doing good because there's going to be a consequence.
Yeah, no, I think everybody has a story to tell, and I think every story has a place. I've been approached by a lot of the incarcerated population who want to reach out, and specifically to YOP age groups, both incarcerated and not yet incarcerated, kind of the at-risk youth that are out there, that we're trying to keep from coming into prisons so they can have a future, or at least they don't have to give up their youth to incarceration. The hard part around that, though, is intent goes a long way, and really intent behind the story is the thing that's the most impactful. And I've had to ask him, can you assure me that the intent of your conversation with this vulnerable, highly idealistic, very naive person is going to be to not be you, to not be a gang member, to give up a life of crime, to go home and listen to your mom and dad, to go to school, to get a trade. If you're going to tell me that that's your message and that's going to only be your message, then absolutely. But if you can't look me in the eye and tell me that that is your only intent, then I can't support it. Because I am an administrator, yes, but I am a law enforcement, and one of my top tier responsibilities is to go after crime and to stop it. And if you embody crime, if you are furthering crime, then that's my job, is to stop you. But so as long as we're on the same page, absolutely, I will give you every resource that I have available. I in fact had a meeting with one of the commanders of the Grizzly Youth Academy there in San Luis Obispo, and my intent is to take from this population here on Facility B, and I talked to Shin about this, and Contreras, and from the Facility D population, and reach those marginalized youths that they're not able to talk to, that they can't talk to them on their level. They don't have their life experiences. They don't know what it's like to grow up in those houses that they've grown up in. So although their message is true, it's not as impactful as it could be. And we have the resource here. A lot of the men in this facility and on Facility D have expressed that they are willing to and want to talk to them, to talk them out of a life of crime, a life of being involved in gangs and whatnot. And so those are the types of things that I'm trying to do, is to stop the flow into prison by addressing the actual problem, the root issue. So.
That's very interesting right there, because we're trying to get more of those programs started. What's stagnating that?
If I had to pick a top three, number one is ignorance, just being completely ignorant to the need being there, to the condition, ignorant to the condition. Two, finding someone that can speak eloquently, that can follow a certain format and dictum, that is somebody that is wanting to take up the work, knowing the type of stress it's going to cause, knowing how much it's going to cost them as far as their life, their time, their emotion, them as a human being, what's it's going to cost them. Because they're literally going to have to pour themselves into these children, which not saying that they're not deserving, but you only have so much life, and you have to really be.
That's the ultimate act of selflessness.
Yeah, you have to be choosy when it comes to what am I going to give my life to. To me, they're worth it, and so I do. To me, the population's worth it, and so I do. But it's finding that connection. Is how do I find the population that wants to do it, that their heart's in the right place, their motivations are correct, the thoughts and intents are sound, that I can get behind it, and it supports our agency mission. And then finding the outside agency that's willing to be with me, to hear me out. I got a lot of good feedback from their commander, Commander Heil. She's a great lady. And she's in DC right now talking to people in DC, and hopefully next week we're gonna get back together and figure out the finer workings of that. But then it's also the resource. How can I find a resource that I can dedicate to that type of program, that I can put my name behind it, and that's not gonna let them down, because it's gotta be scalable. It's gotta have a resource that can give their time and has their time to give and can commit to that, because it is a commitment. There isn't a cost associated with it. But again, to me, it's a worthy endeavor. It is a worthy cost.
With such a job as being just working in prison, period, how does it not leave here and go home with you?
Oh, it does. It does. And my wife, as gracious and patient as she is, points it out to me. My kids, the same. And it's a balancing act.
How do you cope with that?
I just got to turn off my cell phone. I got to put my laptop away, and I have kids. It's a combined house. It's a Brady bunch of 8, but my youngest is 2 months old. She's gonna be 3 months, and so it's thank you, beautiful baby girl, and pouring my life into her as much as I can, and balancing against this job to give her the highest potential likelihood of having a good life and a good environment when she's my age, is what drives me. I'm not only responsible for her, I am responsible for the environment that she's gonna have to live in. And that extends outside of her and outside of the family, outside of my local community, my expanded community, and into here. So I'm not gonna say that my intentions and that my focus is completely altruistic. No, I do have skin in the game.
Right.
I have children, I have family, just like everybody does. And so that's what I do it for. I see the higher order, I see the big picture, and I'm working to that end, really.
Question. This is gonna be a good one right here.
Right.
So, down the line, 10, 15 years down the line, 2 kids walk in the house, 2 of your oldest. They walk in, or the youngest, go to the last 2 youngest. Daughter walks in, Dad, I wanna be a CO. Son walks in, Dad, I'm gangbanging. How do you deal with that?
Man, you're talking about my family parties. So,
My family parties.
yeah, so although my immediate family, my father and my mother set up, I think, the best house that I could have ever asked for, my extended family didn't have those luxuries. So I am one of 7 in my cousins. I'm one of 7 male cousins. I'm the only one that doesn't have a CDCR number. Of those 6, 3 of them are validated SGG1 gang members. I have uncles with black hands tattooed on their chest. You know, some of them are no longer with us, some of them are. I'm 2nd generation US citizen, so my grandfather came from Mexico. My father was raised in the fields. My father went from a field worker to a warden. So I've seen the wide swath. I'm kind of getting personal here, but I've seen the wide. I am the American. I'm the product of the American dream.
Right.
But with the American dream, it's not all rosy. There are some nightmares in there, because a dream is a dream is a dream.
Right.
And although I was blessed and fortunate, again, there's those that I know of personally and intimately that I have a lot of love and respect for that didn't have it as well and didn't make as good decisions as I was able to make because of the examples that I was provided. Not excusing their crime, not excusing their crime. So when we have family get-togethers and barbecues, we all set that aside. And we all love each other. And I respect them and what they have going on, and they respect me and what I have going on, and we just agree that for that time, there will be nothing in that environment that jeopardizes the other. And there is going to be nothing in that environment that disrespects the other or demeans the other.
You know, to this day, I have family members that are COs. Mississippi Department of Corrections, CDC, why they're all that. And I do not talk to them. Not because they're COs, but because they can't do what you're doing. And that's greet me as your family member and stop looking at me as an inmate.
Right, yeah.
Or blackballing me and saying, oh, you know, you're this, that, or the other. It's like, hey, everybody has a course. We all have a path that we have to walk. Now, because mine started off, how you say, fucked up, doesn't mean it can't end good. Because some people start off good and end bad. So that's where our conflict is right there. But you're able to say, look, we're family at the end of it all. You mess up, hey, that's on you.
Yep.
And don't act like you don't have a choice to come over here and do this. And that's when that other question comes in. If your daughter wants to be a correctional officer and not be around the people that laced you in the game and put you on and gave you that right stuff, and she ended up way somewhere else in Pelican Bay or Corcoran, New Folsom, Calipat, and people go on YouTube and you can type in Pelican Bay right now. What's the first thing that pops up? The longest ride in history, all this type of stuff. But what's said by the COs on there is what has a lot of people saying, why would a correctional officer get on there and say, this is Pelican Bay? We don't do rehabilitation. We create shot callers. Even if you don't want to be a shot caller, we will make you violent and we will make you go against all that. This is what is said on there by the badge. So when you have officers portraying that and giving it out, and then you have your daughter that wants to say, hey, Dad, I want to go grow up in here. How do you feel about that?
Well, to answer the daughter and son question, I would hope that my daughter doesn't become a correctional officer. Not that it's not a good career. I just hope that I would provide her more opportunity to go elsewhere with her employment, or have her livelihood set up for her so she wouldn't have to work when she's of adult age to work, and kind of pick a specialty that she would like to dabble in that just happens to make some money. That's my dream for my daughter. If my son decided to be a gang member, it would be like a conversation that I had with my real son a month ago. And when he called me and we talked, and I told him, no matter what, son, I love you. No matter what, I am responsible for you now and for always until I cease to exist. I'm here for you if you need me. There are certain things that I cannot have in my immediate environment, and you're just going to have to understand that and respect that, because my love for each of my kids is the same. And if I allow that, I'm going to have to now jeopardize my ability to be that for my other children. I just can't do that. But if you need me, I'm there. If you call me, I'll answer. And if you need help, I'll get it to you, no matter how you need it, no matter what it is. But it's not going to jeopardize those things that are able to provide the family that I've been able to provide, the model of the family that I was given by my father to provide, and by him, by his father. When it comes to staff, I think it really is a sad state of affairs that some of our institutions are in, where their peace officers feel like they are,
peace officers.
They are peace officers, and I say this for a reason. The peace officers feel like those are things that can be said, and that they represent their institutions and this agency, and that is a failure on leadership. That is a failure of management, because I don't care where people are, and I tell my staff this when I'm talking to them, whether it's a laudatory conversation, whether it's a mentorship conversation, or whether it's a correction or disciplinary conversation. We all signed up for this job to be a peace officer, and we're all proud to pin that star on our chest, to wear that uniform and to stand below that flag and recite the peace officers' code of ethics and the peace officers' oath, the law enforcement code of ethics and the peace officers' oath. And where we are today is where this job is taking us, the environments that we've been working in, and whether or not we continued to have good leadership and mentorship to do our job, and we're given good representations of what is considered ethical conduct of a peace officer when faced with even the most horrendous of circumstances, even the most horrendous of environments. You're still a peace officer. And we need to reflect again, and I on the first meeting that I had here with my officers is, one, to tell them how much I will support them, and then the other to tell them how much I expect of them. And that is the law enforcement code of ethics. That is my expectation. It's a high order. You will fail. You're human. Humans fail. Get back up, dust yourself off, learn, drive on. Help your partner. Control your environment. We are responsible for our environment. We are responsible for these men that live here. If you're not conducting yourself in a manner that makes that better, then you're not conducting yourself in an appropriate manner. Fix it. I'll show you how to do that. When I hear the same statements made, and it really is sad, and it's unfortunate, and it doesn't have to be that way. The department is what you make of it. How you respond to conflict tells a lot of if you really are a peacemaker. A lot of people call themselves peacekeepers, and it's easy to be a peacekeeper because you just carry the biggest stick and you're fine. But to be a true peacemaker, where you're making peace, where there is no peace, that's of value. Those are the ones that I want. Those are the ones that need to be wearing the badge. And if I'm not conducting myself in a manner that creates peacemakers, that creates leaders, and that brings people along that didn't even know that's what they signed up to be, and mold them and make them into that, and show them a good example of that, and to reinforce positive examples of that, then I am not doing my job. So as a leader, I'm leadership forward. I lead who I can, and I manage who I have to. That's both for the workforce and for the population. It tends to work out well, because that intent has a smell to it. You can smell when it ain't right, and you can smell when it is. And people can tell it. It might take a little while, but people know. So I think it can be fixed. I don't think it is indicative or a good representation of the department in its entirety. I think there are pockets of those people who feel that they're now maligned to the department. They don't get along anymore. They don't see the things the way that the California model portrays them to be. They're not onto it, and I know that's probably going to be a talking point, but I just might as well just throw it out now. It's very misunderstood, but and again, that's another failure of leadership to correctly convey what the California model is and what the intent behind it is. And I think if it's done correctly, it's a good thing. It really is, and I think it really is the key to doing what we said we're going to do when we rewrote our mission statement in 2020. To really facilitate the successful reintegration of people in our care back into their communities, equipped with the tools necessary to remain drug-free, healthy, employable members of society, and to do it through training, education, and rehabilitative groups like rehabilitation and restorative justice groups given out in a humane and safe manner. Now that's not verbatim, but that's pretty close to what it says. And if we're going to do that, it's going to take a shift. And I think the memorandum said like a paradigm shift, and that's absolutely correct. Now, did the training come out to support that? I don't think so. Should we rely on upper administration in Sacramento to tell us exactly what to train on? I don't think so. And that's where the leadership at the institutional level really comes into play. I've seen great examples of it. I've seen failures. So we got our work cut out for us.
What is your opinion on the level 4 population?
The level 4 population, when we reorganized the point system, we closed some gaps and we made some gaps a little bit larger in population from level 1 to level 4. I think it's just about right. I don't think the application has always been the best. And I say that because in my opinion, and this is just Nick, and I'm not, in my opinion, the level 4 population should be only comprised of those who absolutely do not want to program, have no desire to sign up for ARC, have no desire to be a peer mentor, PMLP, have no desire to be part of YOP or YAC or Kit Kat or whatever you want to call it. No desire to have a dog and raise a dog, and have no desire. Nobody in the level 4 should be. Everybody in level 4 should be like that, and to have no desire to program. I think where we are starting to lose the correct application of the point systems and the levels. I think it should be programming to non-programming. I mean, you really should, level 4 should be non-programming. MSFs in level 1 should be completely programming, and everything in the middle should be everything else. And it should be adjusted tantamount to the population's desire and continued behavior, which shows that they are programming, at least trying to program.
And as a person who paroled from a level 4, I will express my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
When they came with the integration of the yards,
Mm-hmm.
where did they start at? They started somewhere, but then for some reason somebody said, hey, let's take a bus of dudes, drop them off on a yard, open the gate, and let them go out there, and they're going to get along. That was one of the most deadliest times that I have ever seen in CDCR, mm-hmm. and it was absolutely preventable, and it shouldn't have happened. You had dudes who hadn't had a write-up for 20 years, and now they have to go to the parole board and be shot mm-hmm. down or labeled, oh, you're still a gang member, when all you were doing was defending yourself. Mm-hmm. And when I went to the parole board, and they said, why haven't you went S&Y? And I said, because my life isn't in jeopardy here. Mm-hmm. Why not overly saturate level 4 yards to where you have every single program under the sun? And like how you said, if you choose not to program, then obviously you're a failure. So everybody else is going to leave, and everybody who's left, this is a situation you created for yourself. But instead, it seems like all the programs are taken away, and they say, as they would put quote unquote via the internet, why don't we put the trash with the animals and let the animals clean up the trash? That's what has been said.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
So they said the S&Y is trash. The guys on level 4, the shoot kick out
no.
yards and animals. What?
Yeah, so I was involved in reintegrations at Avenal, and we had a completely different outlook. We had a completely different leadership, and I think you're speaking to Corcoran.
Yeah.
So our administrator at the time was Miss Endo. She is very different than just about every other warden at the time. She was a principal that became a warden. So that's her mindset. That's where her mind is at, and that's the way her brain thinks. And very misunderstood. But you cannot argue the statistics. You cannot argue the impact. You cannot argue the effectiveness of her leadership. And what we did is we gave the opportunity the choice. We had town halls every week. We had information sharing, as much as information as they wanted to share or receive, and we talked to our general population facilities and our S&Y facilities. And we started a measured, sustainable integration strategy that took into account everybody's factors, that took into account what people wanted to do, what they were not willing to do, and we found an environment so that they did not have to make that choice that you're referring to, where they did not have to give up their parole, pretty much, by inadvertently, by no decision of their own, becoming involved in something that would jeopardize their date. So I don't agree with everything that I've ever seen as far as application or I hate this word, operationalization of these memorandum that came out. You know, it's something that department likes to do. This is what we're doing. This is what we want done. Go ahead and do it. And then you have a lot of different varying levels of success and failure that the population, unfortunately, they get the brunt end of it, because you guys live in these populations. We go home.
Right.
We stand behind fences. We stand in control booths. We stand behind gates. It's not the same. So I didn't experience that firsthand in the integration, but I did hear of it, and it's unfortunate, and I think it was absolutely preventable.
Oh yes.
And I don't think you'll ever see anything. I hope you'll never see anything like that ever again. The recent S&Y GP change in classification has caused waves, and a lot of institutions are finding ways to, at least at a minimum, mitigate violence in the facilities as much as possible, given the new classification structure that we have. So the department's got to make these shifts. We have to, in order to get to, I think, what our final goal is. And I haven't read it on paper. I haven't seen any plot charts, or I haven't seen any time scale tables or anything on the sort. But what it looks like we're getting to is more of a programming to non-programming facility structure that allows institutions to move resources where they're going to be most impactful. You can't provide one institution with all of the programs and expect it to be 100%. You can't do it. You got to have, there's going to be a margin of the population that wants to. You know, you have your innovators on the one end, and then you have your people who just never want to change at the other, and everybody else is in between. And your institutions really do need to be built that way, because that's the way civilization's built. Right. That's the way our towns are built. If we're running something different, and we say that we're setting you up for reintegration in your communities, but this community looks nothing like yours, does nothing like yours, is built absolutely backwards from yours, then how is that reintegration? Right. And how am I facilitating that? You know, and it starts off with that prepositional phrase, to facilitate. That means to make a process easier. Are we doing that? Are we making this process easier? Because it's here. It ain't easy. It's not everywhere.
Right. With guys getting ready to parole, all right, if you had to prepare for parole, how would you, as an associate warden who knows the ins and outs, how would you prepare for parole? Because you have guys getting out and it's not their fault and it is their fault. You know what they say, if you don't know any ignorance of the law? You have guys that are getting out and it's, they take them to the GR office. Here, go become dependent on us continuously, or they don't know where to get a job. I didn't even know how to fill out a check or anything about credit. They can go and get a trade, but in a world where AI is taking over and computer technology is booming, the trades that they're learning that's outdated. You know, if you learn how to put a toilet in and take it out, but now the toilets are all electric. So how do you prepare for that? How do we close that gap?
For board or for the after? For the actual parole?
The actual parole.
Actual parole. From what I've seen, I think ISUDT has the best programs for that to prepare our population for release. But I believe the most impactful are the programs that are run by the incarcerated, preparing for board because they've been there. They've gotten the 5-year denial. They got the 3-year denial. They were given the instructions on what they need to prepare for, to do the positive programming, get a degree or get a trade or get whatever board told them to do to prepare for the next one. So they've seen it. They've felt that the sting of a denial, something I've never, hopefully ever in my lifetime will ever have to experience. But to me, that person is probably the best to run those, to prepare people. I think one missing component that I would like to see and that we're trying to build up is for those who have paroled to come back and teach those classes. This is how I got out. This is what I did. This is what it was like. This is what could have been done better, and that's why I'm here to teach you those things. I've never lived that life. I've never gone through that. I don't think any of our, I know none of our administrators that I know personally have ever gone through that, so it's not going to be as impactful as somebody who's gone through it. And I think those are the opportunities that are missed. Those are the resources that are out of fear, they are completely ignored.
Right.
And what my therapist told me is fear is false evidence appearing real. It's stuff that there's something you have up in your mind that's telling you that it's a threat, and most of the time it's not. You just don't completely understand it yet. You're not resilient enough. You're not strong enough. You need to get more resilient, more strong, more knowledgeable, and then it's just not even an issue anymore. But fear of, well, if I let this guy back in, he might bring something in. We've gone through search after search after search, and stuff still keeps coming in. I don't think they're our biggest threat. I think it's coming in other ways that we're just not willing to admit right now, how stuff's coming in. That is even more of a threat, but we're not saying nothing about that.
Right.
We're not saying, hey, just make staff just not come in no more. We're not saying that, right?
Right. Everybody knows the elephant in the room.
Exactly. So, there's one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm not going to lie about things. I'll speak plainly. And I really do believe that our next, I think the resource that we just continue to ignore and we don't allow back in to have this impact, to support our mission, to support what we're really here for, are those who have made it, who are good examples, vetted examples of how to do it right, that can come back in and guide our population through that process.
And then to advocate for the guys that are trying to come back in, like the process for me to get cleared, 6 months. And I might as well, go ahead, I don't care. I'll do the 6 months, wait, it's worth it. I don't have a problem coming in here because just like how they need us, I need them. The only support for a person that's been in here since a child, the guy in blue taught me how to shave, taught me how to cut my hair, taught me how to carry myself, taught me how to draw, taught me to go to this class, told me to go to college. These are the guys that taught me the things that I taught, and who would I be to walk out and just say, hey, that's a part of my life that's over with. Mm-hmm. That's a shame, that's dishonorable. Mm-hmm. Why would you do something like that? So that's my perspective. But then you also have the dudes that say, I went through so much trauma in there, so much trauma that just to even look that way or even see a county bus or something like that causes them just to shut down. So
Yeah.
And then you have
Not
the
easy.
people, if a celebrity walks up right now, and we know, I've seen a celebrity walks in, they don't have to go through anything, just their celebrity alone. Oh, let them through. You know, we had a whole Rams football team walk into a facility one day and nobody said anything. And the people who are on the grassroots putting in that hard work, they get just put to the side. So it's a two-sided thing.
There was a recent memo that came out, I believe it was in December, that spoke to a more streamlined process. So I think that's going to get better. I think it's going to get easier, as easy as it should be, but have as much oversight as it should have to allow for that to happen more often. Because it is a wasted resource. And if we're going to make that process so difficult that in application it makes people not want to go through it anymore, then we need to rethink the process. It's a bad process.
Right.
So, and I think that's what's occurring now. We're going to see more and more of that, like innovative strides towards that type of policy change, because it is impactful. And you can't deny, you can't ignore the statistics behind it. So,
Before we wrap this, can you expound on what we talked about earlier briefly? What and where was the educational system, the teaching? Where did that come from? Because that blew my brain way somewhere else.
yeah, and I happened upon this information. I was watching or listening to a Jordan Peterson podcast. Great mind, an amazing mind. And he was talking about the school system and what it's there for and why it is what it is today. And our school systems, according to him, and he put out all, and so it's one of his podcasts, you can go back and listen to the exact specifics. But our school system was formed after the same system that developed Persian soldiers when they saw that there was a need to build up armies, or to build up a class of males to be subservient. And then that same form, that same construct was adopted during our industrialization period to have a working class of industrial type workers that will report on time, that'll line up in lines, that'll respond to bells, that'll sit in classes, that'll respond to a dominance hierarchy type of setup, where you have a teacher in charge of a class, and you have just the whole setup is to create an institutionalized industrial mind worker that can be counted on by people with the names like Rockefeller that were pushing. They had really big operations that did a lot of beneficial things for this country when we were coming through that period. But it set up the working class typical male to be subservient to an authoritative figure and to deal best in an environment where everything is organized, orderly, and highly structured, like you would need on an assembly line or in a production factory. It leaves nothing to the imagination of how now most jobs we fit into that model, and those jobs that don't fit into that model, people have a hard time fitting into. And the way prisons are today, we depend on and lean on structure, and we had this conversation this morning with some of the captains. We were discussing, release times. Do we have to release that way? Do we have to do all buildings have to release at this specific time every single day? Does a release have to look like this all the time? Can we have varying degrees of difference between our releases, and can we base it off of the population and what's going on and violence that we're seeing, or lack of violence, cooperation or lack of cooperation? Can we adjust it? And the room is very divided because we all come up in this department and we're all sold a certain way of doing things, and we tend to not let go of it because it works. It works. And we're using air quotes right now. It works because I've been able to walk in and out of work for the last 23 years. And it works because it's timely, it's orderly. I can go yard to yard and it's the same. I don't have to. It benefits me. It benefits me. But does it benefit the individual? And is it normal? Is that the way I go eat every day? Is that the way my family goes to dinner every day and eats? Is that the way that these guys are going to experience just releasing and eating on a daily basis when they're out of prison? It's like, no, they're not. All right, well, are they conducting themselves in a way that if we modify it, modified it in a way that makes it more normal, is it going to cause the potential for violence or harm? And does that potential now make the likelihood that we're going to change things, is it just going to take it completely off the table because it's no longer worth it? You know, we have a lot of things to consider, and there's a lot of reasons why we do the things we do, and we tend to lean on our, what would you call them?
Chronic behaviors?
yeah, well, no, it's more like a religious thing. Like you do this thing over and over again, the same exact way. These sayings, these prayers, these ringings of bells, and these things that are done. These traditions, right? The traditions. We tend to lean on the traditions that we believe have benefited us over time. So it's really hard to let go of those. But if we are going after normalization, I think we have a very target-rich environment to find things to just change just a little bit, to make it just a little bit more normal, that I think can have great impact along the way. So, yeah.
That's pretty nice right there. And then one small thing, I gotta add this on there. Being that I've been out close to 3 years now, and started off, you gotta, go into the halfway houses. Please don't think you're gonna go into a halfway house and jump straight into a car and you're gonna go do it. No, you gotta start off extremely slow. You have to go out through the blackout periods. Then most likely, because you can't have a car, you'll ride a bike. During those times, I never got banged on by anyone. Mm-hmm. I didn't, most of us, when we get out, you're gonna be the OG anyway. What's up, OG? You're gonna go by your business, and your dress is completely different, and they play about, their status with money. I won't beef with a guy if he's broker than me. That's the way the youngsters think now. Oh yeah, all right, you can beef from over there, but you don't have as much money with me. So who are you? And I try to tell guys, it's not gonna be the gang members you're gonna have a problem with. It's not gonna be the police you're gonna have a problem with. It's gonna be the people who have the mental health problems and the drug addictions. What type of mental health plans have been put in place to deal with that? Because the mental health is just...
On the outside or in the inside?
It's coming from in here and coming out there in the wages.
No, as far as mental health programs in place.
The mental health programs, what therapeutic...
Are you talking about inside the prisons or outside?
Inside.
Well, I guess the newest mental health programs that have rolled out, the NLTGs, the nursing-led therapeutic groups, to put a different face and a different way of interaction into therapy. I think when it comes to mental health, that's a broad banner of mental health and what constitutes a mental health issue. I don't know of any additional new mental health programs. However, there's things. I believe it's a PMMP. I think it is what the acronym is. But in application, it's the community is looking after the community. So if an inmate sees that another inmate is having an episode, a mental health episode, they can intervene. And where in times past they were told not to intervene, leave it alone, that they are trained to do it correctly. There's a training curriculum that they have to go through. The selection process is very stringent. They're starting a pilot program there at Avenal State Prison. I think there was 5 prisons that started. And it allows the population to identify and report issues before they become violence issues, before they become the eventuality, which is staff having to intervene and then that going, right? That
de-escalation.
Exactly. But to start that before it really becomes a big issue, to see if somebody's having, starting to talk to themselves at night, if they're starting to make like animalistic noises was one of the things. if they're not, if they're starting to become reclusive, they're separating themselves from groups that they were normally involved with or had contact with. If they started giving their stuff away, just all these, markers of somebody undergoing some type of mental health issue. And then a reporting process for that, and it's plugged into our healthcare system, which includes mental health. So I think that's the only thing that they've done now.
And is that extended to the officers as well? Because in LA County,
Yes.
you had, 2 months ago, about 5 officers commit suicide in there.
Right, well, so in that context, no, but in the context of our staff included in the training, yes. So it's that training opportunity was also opened up to staff so that they could get the same training, so that everybody kind of knew what exactly was going on and what the expectations and really the focus and correct application of that program would have been, or should be in the future, because it's something that's coming up. But when it comes to staff, another big conversation that's going slowly, but it is moving to address the mental health issues that staff have. It is not normal. I ask my friends about this. My friend group consists mostly of people that do not have any contact at all with this department, and it's by design. I want to hold on to parts of me that predate corrections. I want to hold on to parts of me that predate what is this normal environment, because it is not normal. I had the opportunity of having a couple surgeries and bicep separations, and so some physical issues that I wasn't at work in a 4-year period, I think for like 2 years and a quarter. So I decompressed, like big time. I no longer had to sit with my back against the wall. I no longer had to have, a security detail everywhere I went. I no longer had to have an escape plan or escape route. Everybody was no longer a potential threat. I could go and talk to people in parks like they're my neighbor. And what that really cemented in my mind and is that this environment is not normal, and it does change you. And if you don't believe that, and if you don't accept that, then you're lying to yourself and you're setting yourself up for failure. And one thing that we need to pay more attention to and put more investment behind or more money towards is the maintenance of our staff's mental health. Mental health maintenance. What does that look like? It looks like different things to different people, but just having just something available for them. We just had a significant event here at Pleasant Valley that our staff was shook by, a couple of them. And the fact that we didn't have an on-duty mental health professional that we can call up and say, hey, I need you to come talk to my staff because they're going through it right now. That is sad. That's a failure. Because not to draw lines or anything, because people are people, but if an inmate was going through the same thing, I'd have a clinician for him in 10 seconds.
Lickety split.
But if a staff it's call EAP and in a couple of weeks you can go talk to somebody, or call this hotline and somebody on a phone can talk to you. And to me, that's not enough. That's not enough. But we do have peer support, and those people, I used to be peer support, and so I completely promote and support the program. It's a great set of amazing people who have taken it upon themselves to stand in that gap when staff need them. And that's a great resource. But to have that trained clinical perspective, evaluative process here for staff to address those needs when they actually occur, and not an afterthought or an after the fact thing. That's the part that needs to change, I believe. I'm working with a couple people to try to get that, or at least get closer, or bring that conversation up to the directorate to see if we can make some movement on that. 'Cause I really do believe that if our staff are the most healthy, the least stressed out as we can get them to, if I can alleviate them of the most stress possible, if I can make the conditions the most stress-free as possible, if I can benefit them the most so that they're comfortable and happy and want to come to work, their interactions with the incarcerated population that might be going through it for the day, that might be in a low point, not thinking correctly, a little bit too excitable, that conversation is probably going to go a little bit better. Right. Probably, most likely. Right. And again, those are little wins. Those are I think it's a shift in perspective and putting people above process. One of the captains asked me to compare two different wardens recently, and one, both of them are great guys. But I said, but one evaluates the need, evaluates the people, and then evaluates the process. This one evaluates the need, evaluates the process, and then evaluates the people. And what the difference is the people feel supported instead of the people feel like they're subjected to a process. Mm. It's the same outcome.
One is systematic, the other is more.
It's the same outcome, but one is leadership forward and one's management forward. So that's been the push here of recent, to be more leadership forward, to put people above the process, to really look at the higher order values, the higher order possibilities out there, the potentials that we can go after, and to guide the population into that circumambulation of self to get to that real potential that they could be, which is a drug-free, healthy, employable member of society. Like, if we can get those, that takes care of everything that you need to be a healthy civilian, and that's rehabilitation.
I've asked, guys that have came out, I've asked some movie directors, rappers, all that stuff. First time asking Warden this. What is your definition of a man?
A man. Well, genetically, a man has the biological composition of what it means to be a male. But to be a man is somebody that takes upon himself the responsibility to, in a nuclear family, to set them up to be the perfect example of how to ensure that you can provide for yourself and for those that depend on you, and that a way of being over time attracts people who are doing the same into your network, so that, again, over time, you can build up that generational wealth, well-being. And I don't mean wealth by money, healthy is wealthy, If you're mentally sound, that's a wealth. There's no price tag that you can put on that. But just to a way of being that keeps that going and sets it up for the highest likelihood of success, and a perfect example for your progeny, so that keeps on going. The afterlife. Even if you don't believe in an actual afterlife, your children and your grandchildren are your afterlife, and that you are their memory that they look on of how they're supposed to act, of what they're supposed to do. That patriarchal figure of what would my grandfather have done in these circumstances. And I just hope that when my grandchildren, and when I'm no longer here and my grandchildren are asking that question, I hope that I've lived a life that they can have those key instances of what they remember me doing or heard tells of me doing, so that they can replicate that, and their grandchildren can have the same. So that's what it means for me to be a man, to be able to provide for and be responsible for and guide your family unit, whatever that is, through life, to be a positive effect in your community, in your environment.
Well, that's dope.
That's the best I can do, man.
No, that's dope. And for the guys that are here,
yeah.
I asked that last question for the purpose of, when people make excuses, I don't have examples, or I don't have this, I don't have that. You have your own very own warden that you can go into the parole board and be like, all right, what is your example of this? Well, I learned this from this individual. And for him to come and sit out here means a lot. I've never met a warden that's like, hey, I want to.
Well, it's Associate Warden acting right now, so I'm not the warden.
No, it's all right.
I don't want to take from that man.
Well, you got that W right there. That's all we see. I see a man with a
all
suit and tie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's you got the status right there. So it's I would hope for you to become a warden.
Me too.
I would hope for you if you running like this and years down the line, If they have to do some type of panel vote to say he's gonna be the head guy over all the CDCR, you got my damn vote. Because we changing the narrative, we wanna do things different, and dudes have a reason now.
Right.
You know,
Well,
you
coming
have a
from where
reason.
you came from and where you're at now, that means a lot to me. It
Yes,
really
sir.
does.
Yes, sir. You know, and
Yeah.
I've never shaken AW's hand
Yeah.
before, so there you go.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank
Absolutely.
you. How y'all like that, fellas?
Done?
Outro? Oh,
Okay.
B-roll. Where's Danny at? What is B-roll? Anybody here know what B-roll is? Yeah, so background. Not you, Tech. 'Cause you know, no. I knew you was gonna come with it.
Yeah, you dropped your little transmitter. It went through the chair too. It's through the chair.
It's good? All right.
And maybe just even go to the white or your close up and just kind of give an outro, you know, thanks.
Okay. Count me down from three. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we appreciate you for letting us come in here. I know there's a lot of hurdles that come with security, procedure, protocol, the yays, the nays, and all that. And I thank the fellas for allowing us to come in, because, you know, without you guys, none of this would be able to happen. And just, when can we do this again? And when the next time we show up, can we be able to show the world the progress that you guys made?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't speak for the warden, but I believe I can. And I know Tristan and Lemon. He's now our associate director. The door's always open. As many of these as we can have, as many opportunities as we can have to show progress, and to correct the narrative of what's really going on in our prisons, of the collaboration that's really happening within our facilities, through our population and through our employees. I think it's a good story. Too often the negative narrative is spun, and this narrative, it is an alternate narrative, I think needs to get out there so people really know, so we can get the support and the movement and that we need to really hit our potential. It's out there. I think we can get it. We just need
We would
need
love
more
to
support.
get those kids from, you know, LA County, Watts, Compton.
Yeah.
They need it, you know. They want to see the people that look like them, walk like them, talk like them, tell them something, and that's the whole end game.
Someday.
Yes, sir.
Someday. All right.
Yes, sir.
A podcast called Strangest Fruit.